It's time for another year of NFL football. We have our game-by-game previews for every single game of the NFL season coming up. This is year number 3, where Erik's going to be with me for every game to preview. Erik, this is year number 4 when we've been talking. I know the first year you started talking trash to me one time, and then we became buddies online and brought you on the show. But it's been, I think, the third year now where we're going to have talked about every single game. And it feels like for now, the schedule at least will be able to be on Wednesday, so that way we can get the Thursday game previewed also.
Yeah, looking forward to being able to talk about the Thursday game. I always feel like the Thursday game, there's certain angles you can kind of take advantage of. And hopefully we can make you guys some money this year.
Okay, well, if you are just tuning in, Erik and I have done previews of every team over the last couple months. We went division by division. I've posted those on social media a bunch. If you follow me on Twitter, it's me, Gino B. I just posted them recently again on Tuesday, so you can check them out. If you want to go by particular team, by particular division, whatever you'd like. But now what's nice is things have changed a little bit. We'll be able to talk about how things look heading into the weekend. And then Erik and I are also going to be part of a couple other shows throughout football season. Friday night, 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, we'll be on The Winning Ticket, which is presented by DRF Sportsbook. If you follow DRF Sportsbook, you can catch the stream there, and Erik and I will always share it. That will be a show where we give out half college football, half NFL. We'll each give out like 3 or 4 plays. We'll talk about any of the big games coming up for the weekend, and then we'll do the same thing for NFL. We'll give out a few of our best bets there, talk about the big weekend games. So you'll get a little bit of that. Then on Sunday mornings, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time, you'll have me and Erik giving you all the last-minute up-to-date information. We'll talk about how any bets that we've locked in, maybe any DFS lineups that we're playing. That can be a little bit more DFS heavy, I think, Erik. Probably on Sunday morning, right, where we really get an idea of what the lineups look like and who's playing and everything.
Yeah, we can really get it in. Maybe like at the end, you and I can just for giggles build a millionaire maker lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. And this year again, we'll go for it if you're up for it. I didn't even run this by you, but we have a lot of similarities in games we play. We'll try to come together and agree on 5 plays for the weekend that we both like, that we both think are strong. That would be if you're playing in any contest or the Millie Maker contest they have at the what is it, the Superbook, the Westgate Superbook. So any of those contests, if you're playing, we'll give you some of our best bets. We'll do our best to get you all the best information that you can, and talk about plays that we made, how numbers have moved. It's always going to be about value when we're previewing these NFL games. A couple things to start with before we get into the Thursday night game. 14 playoff rematches on the schedule this year. That is the most in NFL history. We're going to get a rematch of the Super Bowl, a rematch of both conference championship games, all 4 division round games, and 3 of the 4 wild card games. All of those. Run it back. We're getting them again. Scoring was down a little bit last year, averaging 43.8 points per game, which was a 5-year low. Roughing the passer calls were down. Defensive pass interference calls were down. That was one of the reasons why there was less scoring, less free yards given out. Running the ball was also up. Last year, teams averaged 121.6 rushing yards per game, which was the most since 1987. Teams averaged 27.3 rushing attempts per game, which was the most since 2011. This year, we're going to have 5 games in Europe, 3 in London, 2 in Germany. We'll have a Black Friday game for the first time, day after Thanksgiving. Some things to look for. They are going to be more restrictive with the hitting of the helmet. They're really going to try to crack down because of the concussions, Erik. We saw what happened last year with Tua. So anything that's close with the helmet call, they're just going to call. Even if it doesn't look like you led with the helmet, they're really going to be doing that. Also, some changes on the kickoff returns. If a kick is anywhere inside the 25-yard line, the receiving team can signal for a fair catch and the ball will be placed at the 25. They're just hoping to cut down on some of those high-speed collisions where you get a lot of concussions, because concussions were up 18% overall last year. They've even designed a new helmet for the quarterbacks to give them better protection. One thing that makes it a little bit worrisome, Eric, and we're going to mention this as we go through a lot of the teams. I don't know if it's just me, but a few things I've read have kind of said the same thing. It really feels like the start of this year, we're already in a bad place for a lot of these teams with their offensive lines. Like, they're just not a lot of depth. Even the teams that have really good lines, it's like one or two of those pieces get hurt, they may be in a little bit of trouble. So, man, like always, and I think even more this year, it feels like the offensive line being able to win in the trenches is going to separate you.
I mean, obviously, it's one of those things when a team builds up so much depth at the offensive line, people are going to, how can I say this? People are going to want to poach that depth.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's what's basically happening. And you're seeing that some of these teams, like, they just don't have the depth. And because it's gone, and now they have to just redevelop the farm system, quote unquote.
The DVOA metrics are something you'll hear me talk a lot about as the season gets on more, because as of right now, they're just the predictors. And we can talk about some things that happened last year, but it's a different year. So I like to start really diving into them in, week 3, 4, and then above. Once you get the biggest sample size, then you really start getting a good idea at what those metrics are. But they're predicting, as we expected, 8 of the top 11 teams to come from the AFC. Now, keep in mind, that doesn't mean in wins and losses. That means just overall, who are the best teams based on down-to-down, play-to-play? How good are they over your, expected value, over average? Cowboys, Bills, Chiefs, Jets, 49ers, Eagles, Browns, Ravens, Bengals, Chargers, some of the top teams. Your Lions just behind that. Let's dive in. Eric, we have Thursday night football to talk about. We're looking at the betting lines over at DRF Sportsbook, and we'll give you a nice promo code to use right now if you're in the state of Iowa. That is FAST350, correct, Eric, for anyone in the state of Iowa that wants to sign up and play along?
Yep, FAST350, use it. I have a link on my website for it. I'll take you right to it. And they are is there a deposit match that goes with that too?
All the way up to $350. So a $350 deposit match bonus. Take advantage of that. Maybe you like the Lions. Eric, this number has moved a little bit. It opened like way early in like the 7 range, 6.5 range, but we heard Kelsey got hurt. And now this number has moved down in the last couple days, and it's settling closer to 4.5. So the Chiefs are around a 4.5 favorite in here. We're looking at an over-under on DRS Sportsbook that's about 52 or so. Let's talk about your Detroit Lions kicking off the season, my friend.
Well, first things first. I obviously Kelsey's Kelsey. You kind of look at how many third down receptions he had, the third down conversion rate and everything. Huge. So him not being there, obviously Mahomes does have trust in him. What is the third down?
Who is it?
Who's going to be the third down receiver? That's number one. Number two, how is this new offensive line? They brought in some new pieces. How are they going to gel together this first game? Bieniemy's been there forever. Nagy's taking over. I mean, is that going to be anything? But I really think the main thing is you just kind of look at the splits when Chris Jones, the defensive tackle for the Chiefs, is on the field.
Who's still holding out as of now, right?
He's not going to play. Even if he does play, he hasn't been practicing.
Yeah, exactly. What kind of shape is he going to be in?
You look at the quarterback's success rate. You look at the other team's opposing rush rate. So that fares well for the Lions. Also, the Chiefs lost Frank Clark. So there's a huge point of attack that I think the Lions are going to be able to take advantage of.
Especially with that awesome offensive line.
Yeah. I was really hoping to get the 7. When I heard the Kelsey news break, I locked it in at 6. But I'll say what? right now, I think this is a pure stay away.
I know it's kind of in that middle dead zone because we have some major question marks, like you said, and they're very valid with with Kansas City. I think with their skill position players, not exactly sure. Maybe takes a game or two. It's crazy how good Mahomes has been in week one. If you look at some of his stats in week one, just like otherworldly incredible. I think Reed has been 9-1 with Kansas City. They've averaged 36.4 points per game in those games in the 8 wins. Mahomes has started 5. He's won all 5, 37.8 points. But keep in mind, those have been games with like Kelsey and with a little bit more of a fluid offense where they knew each other. The Lions last year, one thing where they struggled with, they allowed 5.2 yards per carry, which was one of the worst in the league. So they got to stop the run. And that's one thing we think Kansas City is going to try to do a little bit more this year. When the Lions were successful last year, Erik, 5 of their final 6 wins, those wins came when they held an opponent to 18 points or less. We saw the defensive line start to improve a little bit. That defensive line is such a key for them, right? Because if that can be better than expected, or if they can make some plays and take a little bit of the pressure off the offense, I think overall your defense should be a little bit better. The secondary seems like it's going to be much improved, I think, for your Lions too. Let's talk about that side of the ball a little bit on the defensive side, because now what are they going to be able to do to try to slow down Mahomes?
They're going to have to basically just not let the guys get behind them, kind of keep everything in front, hope that Hutch and the rest of the pass rush can get home. Just real quick, some interesting trends. Mahomes, 47% ATS is a favorite, 44% ATS is a home favorite. From a 3.5 point to a 7-point favorite, he is only at home. He's only 27%
in this range right here.
Number. Another trend I found last year, quarterbacks that didn't play in the preseason were 1-6 ATS. Goff didn't play this preseason. So how, you know what I mean? What's Goff going to look like? Is this a trend? Was it just a fluky thing? Just kind of something to remember. But I really feel that with the defense, them making the additions like they did, I think Brian Barrage, I think the rest of the DBs they brought in is going to help the secondary a lot. I think Hutchinson's going to be able to get home. And obviously not having to defend Kelsey's a big one, because when you look at these wide receivers, who really scares you? And Kadarius Toney is a modern-day Percy Harvin, he's just waiting to get hurt.
They're just so unproven. Sky Moore, we don't know exactly what we're going to get from him, I think. And then if Kelsey plays, he's definitely not going to be 100%. And if you can really try to lean on him a little bit and make the other guys beat you, just put a little pressure on them. Because whereas last year, it wasn't like they lost a bunch of fantastic players, but they did lose Juju Smith and Mecole Hardman. That's 135 targets between the two of them, from last year. You mentioned it. Just lots of little things. Chris Jones is out. Bieniemy left, so maybe it takes a little bit just to get on the same page with new receivers, quarterback, new receivers, new offensive coordinator, kind of all coming together. This team's played a lot of games. I don't know if it's going to impact them right now, right? First game of the year, you're going to be up. It's your home game, but maybe later as the season goes on. We talked about they've hosted 5 consecutive AFC championship games. That's like starting to get to the point where you're going to be another season of played games, through your playoff.
They've been playing a lot, and we talked about it. Like, I was worried about Kelsey going in the season. Unfortunately, he got hurt.
Yep. And they're the skill position players for them have to prove it to us, and maybe they will. Maybe Sky Moore jumps up. Maybe Toney can stay healthy, and this looks like a really good spot for him. We just haven't seen it. The running backs room is Pacheco and McKinnon. You feel like McKinnon will come back to life a little bit last year. He had an incredibly efficient year last year where he was scoring touchdowns and catching passes at like a ridiculous rate. That's very hard to sustain generally. Over on the Lions side, you've got an offense that brought back the same offensive coordinator who was a head coach candidate, and They have a couple different pieces, but overall, they're pretty intriguing because what's nice is they can lean on that really good offensive line. So Goff now should be comfortable with Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's going to lean on him. He's become one of the best wide receivers in the league. Then after him, sort of a lot of veterans that are going to be filling in. And it really looks like they're very high on the two young guys, Eric. I think we're going to see a lot of them. This may be a spot where you can really attack against Kansas City too, like the middle of the field defensively there. I think that might be a really good spot to try to attack because you're going to have Gibbs, the rookie. You're going to also have the other rookie, Sam Laporta, tight end. Those guys can operate across the middle where it looks like the running back Gibbs is going to be coming out of the slot a little bit.
Yeah. And I mean, St. Brown's going to be lined up in the slot. I mean, I think if you're going to play a player prop, St. Brown over is the one you got to kind of look at. I don't know. I kind of feel like with the line movement, the value.
It's hard to play. Yeah,
it's on the Chiefs right now.
It's hard to play. It's hard to play for me. It's in the middle of that spot. If this thing went down to 4 and to 3.5, I would jump on the Chiefs side. For now, I'm happy to have football back. Just going to watch this one. As we move to game 2, Eric, we've got Arizona at Washington. So this is going to be a hot survivor pick, I think, for a lot of people because while Washington is going to be starting Sam Howell, Arizona on the flip side is going to be starting a quarterback who has they have a new GM, a new coach, no J.J. Watt, no Hopkins, no Murray. They traded their 8th overall pick from 2020 Simmons to the Giants for a 7th round pick. They traded Josh Jones, a good tackle, to the Texans. Now Josh Dobbs is starting. He has 85 career passing attempts, and Clayton Tune is the backup. He's a rookie. So this team has 2 first-round draft picks next year. They don't want to win. And I think I haven't really liked some of the videos I've seen about their coach, kind of some weird, kind of goofy clips going around.
Yeah, the motivational one. That
was funky. I mean, I'm not going to play the Commanders laying 7 here in any way, shape, or form, but I'm going to definitely have this one probably in one of my survivor pools picks because that way, if it works out, you can save, some of the other good teams for later in the year. Not sure how many times the Commanders are going to be a 7-point favorite, in their games. And just thinking about where Arizona is going to struggle with their quarterback play. And man, where Washington should really be fantastic is the defensive front, right? They're going to make life really difficult on a couple, possibly even young, unproven quarterbacks for sure, at least Dobbs right away. So I don't really have anything to play in here. I'm kind of curious to see how inept Arizona looks out there because they've sort of now become the consensus team that's going to be the worst team overall. And I think a lot of people just know they don't want to win, and we're not really sure what's going to happen with Kyler Murray. I don't really know if I have like a play in here at all either way, but I wanted to mention because I had thought at least, a lot of survivor people out there probably jump in on this one.
Here's the thing. If you're going to bet it, it sucks. It absolutely sucks. But if you're going to bet it, you have to bet the Cardinals. The way I look at it is
absolutely. As soon as it hits 7 or like in the 6 range for sure.
The way I look at it is this. Who is Sam Howell in his second start to be laying this many points?
None. Nobody. Shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen. It's just, from a point spread standpoint, it's crazy. Looking at the rosters of the two teams, you can understand why, because I mean, there's a world where Washington doesn't even have to do anything offensively, and they just run the ball, don't even have Howell make any sort of crazy passes whatsoever. They get 2 or 3 defensive turnovers and just can run it and pound it in. It's just like a low scoring, ugly game that Washington wins like 17-6 or something, right?
But on the flip side, who has the most bets on them right now? Commanders.
Yeah.
I
would play this game under
41% ATS is a favorite.
Yeah.
And this is just betting 101. a game with a low total and a high number.
You always want to take the dog.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way I would in a million years lay.
But the
lay
thing
7.
is like, you really want to bet.
What would you have set this line? Like, what would you set this line at to make it feel the most fair on both sides? I'd say probably right where the first one was, 4.5.
Yeah. Yep, 4.5.
So if you feel like you can get a couple points anytime and you're right there with that magic number of 7, especially if you're waiting around throughout the weekend, this number floats up to 7.5, then it's probably the other way, because we see this happen where bad teams can come out for a game or two and then they'll be bad the rest of the year. But we really don't know what to expect from Washington. I do just expect their defense to be good. I expect that, and the front and Young this year, it's a contract year for him. Like, I think that's one thing we can count on with these two teams. But you're saying, what's Sam Howell? What if he's turning the ball over a couple times and he's not able to complete passes?
And like McLaurin has some toe issue. It's not like
if he's out of the game, then you have Dotson as your one.
Like the offensive line is like that stellar.
No,
for the Commanders. So for me, it's cards or bust. I have not pulled the trigger yet because I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I want to drink that bleach on week 1.
Yeah, we'll be playing them a lot come the later parts of the season. New defensive coordinator has them putting a lot more pressure on the quarterback in their first 2 preseason games. Secondary very unproven for Arizona. On the Commanders side, they were 3rd in yards allowed per game last year defensively on the positive side, and had the NFL's best 3rd down defense, a conversion percentage of only 31.9. They want to build on that. Offensive line, though, they have new starters at 4 positions. And not really top-tier talent. No first-rounders, only one that was a second-rounder. Can Bieniemy help them? That offense last year was 27th in points per game, 29th in yards per play, and had the 3rd lowest total QBR. Commanders, big favorite here against the Cardinals. Let's move along. Eric, where are we headed next? The Panthers and the Falcons. You and I are pretty high on Atlanta this year, and they open up with a really nice spot at home against a division rival and a young quarterback with a bad offensive line. That's the thing about the Panthers. They have a high ceiling, I guess, if Young is good and he's ready to go right now. But the Panthers don't really have a good offensive line at all. They just placed their right guard, Corvette, on the PUP list. He's out the first 4 games of the year. He's been one of the top 20, 5 guards in the NFL each of the last 3 years. Filling in for him is going to be a rookie who has not performed well in the preseason in a limited sample size. So keep an eye on the right guard side. That could be a tough place to watch on the offensive line. And then they don't really have a number 1 wide receiver here. I wasn't that high on Bryce Young and his size. So we have a small quarterback. He doesn't have a whole lot of help at the skill positions. DJ Shark, Adam Thielen, Jonathan Mingo, Hayden Hurst. Those are going to be his best pass catchers. He doesn't have a whole lot of help there, Eric. He doesn't have a nice offensive line to stand behind that's going to buy him a lot of time. And then for the Falcons, this team, I don't think enough people are talking about how improved their defense could be. That was one of the highlights you and I discussed when talking about them. They have a new defensive coordinator who was the co-defensive coordinator of the Saints last year. He brought in a couple pieces from their defense, guys who had 5 and 7 sacks last year. They have Bates, Campbell, Bud Dupree, Onyemata, Caden Ellis, Okudah, Mike Hughes, all new faces on the defensive line. Terrell had a bad year last year, but he had a great year a couple years ago. He's likely to bounce back and be somewhere in the middle. It's probably not quite as bad or not quite as good as he was in extremes either of those 2 years. And then the positive for them, Eric, is from a quarterback standpoint. It's not like I think Ritter is going to be the best quarterback in the league, but by a lot of metrics that I looked at, Mariota was horrible last year just throwing the ball. He couldn't do anything down the field. It made Pitts and London just nothing. Like, they couldn't get the ball down the field at all. If Ritter is just not one of the worst 2 or 3 out of 35 or 40 quarterbacks he's going to be an upgrade on what they were getting last year. They're going to be better in the running game with Bijan Robinson. They're going to be better in the offensive line, equally as strong and good as they were last year. And I think their defense is going to be really good. You're super high on their coach. Are we going to play this at 3.5? I think they win easily here. I don't love the number.
No real value on the number. I mean, if this dips down to 3, maybe I'll be on the Falcons. I think this kind of could be the survivor pick. You can kind of look to take
a sneaky one,
a rookie quarterback on the lot on it. And let's face it, the 2 most popular picks, probably one of the 2 is going to lose.
Yep, you know it always does. It's Washington or the Ravens, right?
Yeah. So I don't know. That's the only thing I would do here. And Burns, who's the best pass rusher for the Panthers, he wants a new contract. It doesn't look like he's going to play. So that's another thing. Are they going to be able to get to Ritter, make him uncomfortable? I don't know. I just think that the Panthers don't have enough to disrupt Ritter. I think with Jarrett and Campbell, they're going to be able to get to Young, make his life a little hard. And at the end of the day, you have a rookie quarterback going on the road.
Yeah.
I'm
without a whole lot of good weapons and without a great offensive line. Like, he's not in a spot to succeed. I mean, I like Atlanta quite a bit in here, but I don't want to play them in that number, right? I think they handle them, but we move to Cincy at the Browns. So a big divisional game for the Bengals and the Browns right off the bat. We have on the Cleveland side, Zadarius Smith healthy to add with Myles Garrett. It's a lethal pass rush right there. Garrett was the most double-teamed edge rusher in the league last year, getting double-teamed on more than 31% of his plays. If you're getting some help from Smith, teams aren't going to be able to do that. An already strong offensive line got even stronger. This is one of a few teams that has some depth. They drafted an offensive tackle named Jones, who fell to the 4th round. In the preseason, he only allowed 3 total pressures on 148 pass blocking snaps, which was actually the most snaps that any offensive lineman had. One of the few teams that seems to really have some depth there. Now it's up to Watson. Is he going to be the top 5 guy that he was a few years ago, or the bottom 5 guy that he was last year? I think he's somewhere in between, because he's set up very well with that offensive line, with a good running back, and he has some really nice weapons there. I think they brought in Elijah Moore, who will help a little bit. Amari Cooper had a quietly really nice year last year. They have a couple options at tight end. Donovan Peoples-Jones is like sort of a really solid, under the radar number 3-ish wide receiver. I like the Browns in this spot. It depends on what kind of number you're getting or what kind of number you've received. This number right now is still around 2.5 here. At some spots, it's kind of dipped down a little bit.
Yeah. This is the best tip I can give for betting. We've definitely seen a shift, like more legal shops. But even with more legal shops, the whole offshore game is just way ahead in the line movement. Mm-hmm. More sharp players play on the offshores, just because you can get more
limits. You're not limited. Yeah, you're not getting limited as much.
So you're starting to see on Bookmaker that crisis. You're starting to see this dip down to 2.
Yeah.
That kind of speaks that we're going to see it in the regulated market get down to 2 too soon. So I would take the 2.5.
Yeah, I think you take it right now, because that's the side to be. The last few years, the Bengals have had slow starts, and I don't think it's a coincidence that this is the third. Each of his 3 prior years, Burrow has had missed the camp or had abbreviated camps, and in those 3 years, they lost 2 of the 3 games. All 3 of those games were actually really close. They were all separated by just 3 points. And he's only 1-4 in his career against the Browns. I think it's a good spot to take the Brownies in here.
Very good spot. My thing is I look at it, and I'm going to say this angle a lot. We have a home divisional dog, 66%. That's 25 and 13. Love the Browns here. The main thing is you mentioned Cooper. You mentioned Elijah Moore. The Bengals took a big hit in the back four. So is that back four, is that going to be able to hold up against this elite group of wide receiver? The Browns do have the best offensive line in the NFL. I think they're going to keep Reader and crew intact. And then
they might be able to attack the secondary a little bit here too, because the starting safeties both left in free agency, and they added those were players that were in all 19 games last year and the playoffs. Hill was a first-round pick and is expected to play every down, and Nick Scott is in his first year after playing with the Rams, and they should be okay players, maybe even very good down the line, but you may be able to attack them early because they're just not used to being every down guys early on.
Yeah, like I think they're going to be able to throw all day, and I think if they're going to use Chubb to open up the passing game. And Watson was one of the best RPO quarterbacks in his time with the Texans. You get that RPO going behind this offensive line, and Chubb. Like I think Watson's a sneaky DFS play.
Yeah.
But my main thing is you got Zadarius Smith, who's going to not allow teams to double Myles Garrett. Last night on my stream, I had this guy named Reed on. Reed played college football, very knowledgeable guy. And this is one of the picks he gave out. And his main thing was this, is you have Jonah Williams, who has played left tackle in the NFL at Alabama. Now he's going over to the right side. And now Reed played a very high level of football. He said people don't understand what a big move that is after having so many games underneath your belt. And now you're going up against either Zadarius Smith, who's an elite pass rusher, or Myles Garrett, who's probably the best defender in the game. He said, like, the timing that he's going to have is really going to be evident the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, he is someone who's going to be put to test right away. And I think the Bengals will be good and will be fine, and they'll be fine come the end of the year. But they've not had great success with the Browns. Burrow's been a little bit of a slow starter. He's been out of camp right now. Like you said, there's some moving pieces on the offensive line that might take a little while to get used to. So I'm going to lean Cleveland here. Let's make that one of our plays right now. 2.5. The Brownies at home. Let's keep rolling along, Eric. Where do we go next? We go Texans at the Ravens. This is going to be a very popular survivor play because the Ravens are a 10-point favorite in here, over under in this game, around 43.5. You have the Ravens who signed Lamar to the long-term deal, and now they try to build around him. They brought in some nice pieces, some better pieces than he's had. He doesn't necessarily have a big standout number one, but it does seem like there's a little bit more depth overall. You've got Odell, Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers to add with Mark Andrews. So, I mean, if they're healthy, they're better. They still don't have that number one type guy. And Houston's been a team that we've liked to play a lot the last couple of years. I think they're going to be a lot better this year. And I have a tough time using them using Baltimore in Survivor because I'm scared of the Texans just being a little better with their new head coach, former defensive coordinator for the 49ers, rookie pass rusher up front. OC's, got a lot of good hype, and I'm higher on Stroud than some of the other, young quarterbacks. What I like too, Eric, they went out and invested in the offensive line. They gave both tackles extensions. They brought in a right guard, gave him an extension right away, used a second-round draft pick drafting a center, and then they traded for Jones from the Cardinals last year, who was a top 20 tackle and who can also play guard. So they went out and did their best to try to keep their young quarterback safe. I think at this number, I'm definitely not on the Ravens side, and I think once it hits double digits, I'm playing the Texans.
Yeah, I bet the Texans. I look at it like this. So let's just kind of look at it. Let's look at what the numbers say. Week 1 is basically just based on what people perceive of a team. So you can kind of get overinflated heavy line. 10-point dogs or more, week 1, home or away, 70.6% ATS. When it is a road dog, it's 64% ATS. First-year coaches on the road, 58% ATS. Okay. Harbaugh, he's 48% ATS as a favorite this big. So, those trends kind of say to take the Texans. And I know the college game and the pro game is completely different, but we can kind of use it as a reference point sometimes because it is a game of football. A lot of hype was on Clemson this year coming into the season because they had this new offense. Offense looked a little sputter. Same thing with the Ravens. Football is all about timing. It's about repetition. Lamar did not play in the preseason, and he's implementing a new offense. You're telling me the timing is going to be there. You're telling me the timing with these receivers who they brought in, you mentioned them.
They're all brand new offense, and probably a lot more throwing.
There, you know what I mean? It's just this, and it's not like you show me one beat reporter that has been, oh, dude, this offense looks tight. Stuff looks good out of Baltimore. All you hear is J.K. Dobbins upset. You know what I mean? That's not none of this good stuff you hear. And they lost Ben Powers, who was one of their better offensive linemen. Look, it's a disgusting number. There's probably going to be
they got some
people in America betting in this.
You and me are going to be two of them. And yeah, they're very shaky in the secondary. Injury to Humphrey, some unproven quarters, also coming off of injuries. Just feels like too much. This is a game where they could be up by 16 and you get a backdoor late garbage time score here. And I just feel positive about a lot of the things the Texans have done in the offside. That's our second play of the week. Texans plus the 10. Let's move to Jags at the Colts. So we have Jacksonville coming off a playoff year last year where they turned everything around midway through the season, played very well, won a playoff game, and now they're the big team to beat in the division. Can they take another step forward with year 2 of Doug Peterson? You have the Colts here. They're going to look brand new. No Jonathan Taylor, and Richardson is their quarterback. I think he's going to be a terrible quarterback for actual football, but a valuable one for fantasy, possibly, and one that could score you some points in certain spots in the right spot. Jacksonville is a 5-point favorite on the road in here. Calvin Ridley joins the Jags. Top-tier talent on the defensive line. They were 25th in sacks, though. They were a little disappointing. They get to the quarterback, but they don't wrap them up. I'm going to probably just stay away here. I'm really nervous about Richardson early on. And the Colts is another situation where the offensive line I could see going either way. They're sort of like a wide range. They were good a couple years ago. Then some of those same players weren't very good last year. I don't really know what to expect from some of their backs. I don't really know what to expect from some of their receivers, honestly. But the problem is I'm sort of down on Jacksonville this year. I don't think they're going to be as good and as automatic as everybody else thinks. I'm probably staying away from this one, though, Eric. Talk to us about Jags, Colts. Jacksonville, 5-point favorite on the road here, over under 45.
I hate myself. There's certain bets I made.
You Indy it. You're not laying it with Jacksonville for sure.
I hate it. And I'm going to be
What was your buy-in? Like over 3.5? Over 4?
I just knew it since it was a home divisional dog. Like week 1, this is just the spot I take. So there's 5s across the board. I'll wait. I can maybe see if I can get a 5.5, but I'm fine.
4.5 to 5. If
I'm
it
playing
goes down,
5.
Yeah.
I look at it like this. And anyone that has listened to me on your show knows my big thing is what? The Trenchers.
Yep.
The Trenchers, excuse me. Looking at this Colts team, what's their strength? The defensive line. During our AFC South preview, what was our area of concern with the Jaguars? Their offensive line. And now you don't have Cam Johnson, who's suspended. You don't have your other tackle who had his best year, who was your best offensive lineman last year. So you have two
Yep.
backups starting against the Colts' strength. I'm not saying the Colts are going to be able to win this.
Close enough to where it's a field goal game.
Close. And let's rewind a little bit. Remember a couple of years ago when Phillip Rivers were there, everyone and their aunt took the Colts on the road as their survivor pick against the Jaguars. And what happened? Jaguars straight up won. I mentioned the home dog thing. You have to remember that. 60%, 25 and 13. Rookie quarterbacks on the road. Rookie quarterbacks first game, 54%. Rookie coaches on the road. I was on the road. Excuse me. Peterson, 40% ATS. But at the end of the day, the big thing for me is this. Just the point of attack of Indy's defensive line against the Jaguars offensive line. I really think that is going to be the difference in terms of the fantasy aspect and thing. There's one person I started to really come around on in fantasy football this year as I started to do more drafts, and that was Calvin Ridley. You look at the running back free agent class, it is freaking loaded with people. You look at the wide receiver free agent class, it's Calvin Ridley and Mike Evans. Ridley, if he balls out, has a chance to get paid. And I really think he's going to be in line for an absolute huge season. He was one guy that I was just looking to target every single one of my fantasy football drafts. And with that being said, I think he's going to be a little underpriced to start the season in DFS.
Let's look at the Jags and the Colts. Let's keep rolling. The 49ers and the Steelers. This was one of those games I mentioned when we had the winning ticket as a look-ahead play when Pittsburgh was +3, because I thought as the season got closer, this might have been like a sharp play for people because the 49ers have legitimate quarterback concerns. We did hear that Bosa signed a deal, but very similar to what you were saying earlier about some of these other holdouts, he's not going to be in shape to be a normal Bosa. He hasn't been doing anything really football related recently. And I'm very, very high on the Steelers this year. One of my big concerns for them is the offensive line. I think they've looked fine so far in the preseason. They looked really good in the preseason. I'm not going to try to judge everything off of that, but I'd rather have them looking good than looking bad. Pickett led all quarterbacks with a 94 overall offensive grade by Pro Football Focus, and he was second in overall grade last year from weeks 12 to 18, only behind Joe Burrow. The last 2 years in week 1, they've had upsets. They upset the Bills a couple years ago, and then they upset the Bengals last year in week 1. And this is just a total Mike Tomlin spot, Eric, right? You've got week 1, you're a small home dog. I think, this is a pretty good group overall. They have 1 or 2 spots where I think they'll struggle, but I like their wide receiver group. I expect Deontay Johnson to get a couple touchdowns this year with Pickens. Freiermuth is a top 10 tight end. I like them there on the defensive front. They're going to be healthy now. So the 49ers, their weak spot is their offensive line because they're going to be looking a lot different on the offensive line right now. And so they will have a very tough Pittsburgh defensive front to deal with. San Francisco also has a new defensive coordinator. So while they're very good on the defensive side, it's going to be a new guy back there calling the plays. Things will be a little bit different for this team. And Purdy was great last year. He overachieved. I'm not sure he's just going to automatically come back in and be that guy we saw last year. And he was hurt. He's coming off of surgery right now. You're just going to punch him right back in. I think it's a great spot for Pittsburgh to open up the year. I think it's a tough spot for San Francisco with some of their concerns. If you have to play in a tough place with a young quarterback that's not had a lot of experience recently and an offensive line with questions, you're in a bad spot here against Pittsburgh. Talk to us about this one, Eric.
I gave this one out last night. We're recording this on Wednesday, Tuesday night on my show. The one big thing that stood out to me is when I was just looking back since 2001, West Coast teams that travel across to the East Coast that are favorites are only 45% ATS. So, again, that's a big travel. People need to realize changing time zones, early start 1 p.m. Tomlin home dog 65%. Sorry, Tomlin as a dog 65%. Tomlin as a home dog is a whopping 79%. Look, could San Francisco come out of the NFC? Yeah, they easily could. But when you look at the San Francisco team right now, Bosa re-signed, which is great for them. Long term, that's great. Is he going to play? If he does play, realistically, what? He's going to be on a count. He's going to be on a snap count. He can't play the full game just because he hasn't been practicing.
No way he's in shape.
Game shape. I, myself, I'm not a Purdy guy. I watched a lot of Iowa State football. I am not a Brock Purdy guy. Number whatever I'm on. I'm sorry. I think the offensive line could be good, but they're breaking in 4 new players.
Yep.
4 players.
They have one absolute stud.
Yep.
And then 4 brand new, unproven. They bring back Trent Williams, and then they're losing their starting right tackle. They're going to have competition at center. There's just a lot of concerns there. Pieces moving around. So I don't think that's going to be as much of a strength for them. For as much crap as Jimmy G got, he was consistent. He knew everything. He knew the system really well. He maybe couldn't take you to win the Super Bowl, but he can get you pretty damn close to it. I don't know. I'm just not high on the San Francisco team as much as everyone else is, and I think it's a great spot for Pittsburgh to start the year.
I think it's a phenomenal spot. And also another thing, Shanahan only 46% ATS. I'm a little worried about the back 4 of the 49ers' ability to cover Deontay Johnson and Pickens. Obviously, I think they're going to look to get Pickens at Tutty because he set a record last year not having –
Or Deontay, yep.
So, I'd look to play that too. And I really liked how the Steelers treated the preseason as an actual preseason. I locked this in at 2.5 just because I don't think it's going to move at all.
Eric, let's get to the Bucks and the Vikings. Minnesota's a 6-point favorite in this game over Tampa. Tampa's projected to be one of the worst teams in the league. Probably still a good defense. And Minnesota, we talked all about in our preview, as a team that won 11 one-score games last year. They crazy overachieved on Pythagorean wins. And I don't think they're going to be as good this year. I'm staying away from this game purely because I don't really know what to expect at all from the Tampa Bay offense. They couldn't run the ball at all. I'm curious how well Baker can do back there with a bad offensive line. Haven't heard positive things already coming out of the receiver room. Just not good energy from Tampa as some of the other long shots that we're playing, right? I like what I'm hearing and reading about the Texans, so I'm fine playing them at a bigger number. I like some of the other things we're hearing about some of these other teams, but for me, I'm just staying away from this one.
This number's been dropping, and offshore it's moved down to 5.5. There's sharp money coming on the Bucks, and I really think the reason why is the issue that the Vikings have in their back 4. And if there's one thing that Baker's showing, Baker gives 2 shits. He's going to throw the ball.
Well, that's a great point.
On the field.
And he, you know what? And that's where he's actually been very successful for as much crap as he's been and given, which is rightly so in a lot of spots. He's actually been really good down the field. He has a 42% completion percentage on throws 20 plus yards down the field. Doesn't sound great, but 42% on those deep throws, he's 9th out of 33 quarterbacks that are ranked there. Everything else, short throws less than 20 yards down the field, he's 39th out of 42.
Yeah.
So take some big shots down the field. Baker,
I think that's what they're going to do.
Did you play this, or is there a number where you would buy?
If this got up to 7, I'd probably play it.
Me too. But I'm,
I think the value DFS play though is you either stack Justin Jefferson and Baker, or
absolutely
flip side, Evans and Cousins.
I think Minnesota is going to be one of those teams we attack because of their defense this year. So look to the receivers in this game. And to be honest, like what you said, because you said it and because he's my guy, I'm going to have one lineup with Baker because Baker is the type of quarterback that wins you the millie.
Yeah.
Like not a lot of people are going to be investing in Baker. He's going to be a really cheap option. And if you can just say, well, maybe he gets a couple, he connects with the good receivers there and they help him do a lot of the work. You don't need a whole lot from Baker in order for him to be one of those guys to get you good production. So we'll take one swing on him. But yeah, for me at the number, I'm kind of clear at the moment. Let's keep rolling along, Eric. Where do we head next? Tennessee at New Orleans. This one is the Saints -3.5. I locked this game in. I sent you a link to an article on the Ringer that was really good about Mike Vrabel. I sent it to my dad too. My dad was a coach. He coached a lot. He coached high school wrestling and he coached like a lot of my stuff growing up. He loved coaching, and so I sent it to him. It was just a cool article about how Vrabel's a good coach because he doesn't BS you, and he just makes you work hard and he doesn't lie to you. But he'll get down and dirty himself, like he gets in 3-point stance. He tells people what they need to hear, and everybody respects him. And this is the type of spot where I love Vrabel. As soon as this thing was a 3.5, I was going to dive in right away because I think these two teams are probably not far separated as far as where they may land this year. Tennessee's in a tougher AFC, but they're both in pretty weak divisions overall. I think Tennessee is going to be fine this year. People are acting like they're going to be completely done. And last year, they were really bad down the stretch. Remember, that was without Tannehill. They were 0-7 straight up. And I think 1-5-1 against the spread. He missed and he was out. They missed the playoffs. That was only the second time in 7 years under Vrabel that they've missed the playoffs. Now they have they brought in Hopkins, which gives them a nice piece to go along with Henry. Hopkins is getting older, sure, but with Henry and stacking the boxes there, he'll get a lot of one-on-ones, and he won't be, I don't think, necessarily double team there. They were very good at stopping the run last year, which I think is one thing that you feel like New Orleans will want to do, even without Kamara in week one, who's out for the first 3 games. I don't really love their head coach, Allen, in tight games like this. If it's close but more than a field goal, he's not great at decision-making, when to kick, when to go for it, those types of things. I like Tennessee in this spot here. I think this is just a close game, and if you're giving me the hook, I'm going to take the Titans here. Eric, talk to us about this one.
Vrabel is a dog, 60% ATS. Vrabel is a road dog, a 59% ATS. You're going to hear me talk about a lot when we're doing these shows, offensive versus defensive line. And I really think the main thing we need to remember is there's no Davenport. Davenport's not there. And I really don't feel that the guys that they have, Brees and Sanders, I really don't think those guys are going to be able to create as much havoc as Davenport did in the back. Lattimore is hurt. I don't know, is he going to play? Trending like he's going to play. But we've seen how much the Saints defense struggles when there's no Lattimore. Also, Tim White is the offensive coordinator. His offense back in those days with the Texans was explosive. And I really think it's going to bring a whole new wrinkle to this Tennessee offense. And they got our boy, Spears from Tulane, who's going to be able to spell Henry now. Now they have a legit playmaker running back that can come in and spell Henry, something they haven't had in the back before. I think this offense is going to be able to move the ball for the Titans. Saints had offensive line issues last year. When you sit back and look at their roster, do you really feel like they did anything to address that? I don't. And you have Simmons for the Titans over there. I think he's going to be able to create some havoc. They have that good young pass rusher for the Titans. I'm spacing on his name. I just kind of feel like, look, this is just a good matchup. Vrabel as a home dog. I'm going to take the points here.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you said Tim White, who was the WWE referee. I think his name is Tim Kelly, right? It's funny that shout out to Tim Kelly. That's my buddy also who does the Star Wars and the Marvel recordings with me. His name is Tim Kelly. But I was like, Tim White, that's the WWE referee that I was remember who used to be on there and was good with buddies with Andre the Giant. No, so we're both Tim on the right. I knew looking at this one right away where we would definitely be on the same side here with the Titans getting the 3.5. Okay, let's move along to the next one. Eric, where do we go next? We go to the Packers at the Bears, divisional game. Young quarterbacks here on the Packers side. New quarterback, 2 wide receivers that are in their second year, a rookie wide receiver, a rookie tight end, 8 first-round draft picks on the defensive side all over the place. So much young talent, but they're very unproven. They probably have the better coach, though. And in this spot, it's basically a pick 'em. They're going to be on the road. Like, this is going to be a game that the Bears got to be up for. Their fans have to be excited to be playing a game here with against the Packers without Aaron Rodgers. I like the Bears overall as a team. I want to wait this year. Like, I think they'll be improved. I don't know how much I like them. I know you got a couple of the Bears stuff early on in this year. Is this a spot where you're playing them? It's down to 1 here now.
So let's just go down a rabbit hole, if you will. Okay. You lose to the Packers. Okay. 0-1. You go down, you play at Tampa. Hot. I really have questions about the Bears defense. The more I've dove into the Bears, the more I'm a little leery about them. You're 0-2. You now go play the Chiefs, 0-3. Play the Broncos, 0-4. Commanders on a short week. I really feel like, as crazy as it sounds, this game is so pivotal to the season for the Bears, and it's
got to get off to a good start right away.
They get off to this bad start. I don't know what's going to happen with them. I'm a little worried about the Bears here because
their offensive line's been
go off, and then on top of that, if they have because they're going to have the Panthers pick. You and I are both low on them. If they win 4 or 5 games, you're going to probably have another top 10 pick. Draft class for quarterback looks pretty loaded. Fields is coming up for that extension. Are the Bears going if another brutal year? Do you let go of Eberflus and do another hard reset? I mean, I really think this Bears season.
It's so funny because people are so high coming on to the season because of Fields and how good and dynamic he
I like Fields.
Me too.
Fields is an absolute gold mine. I think,
but the offensive line is bad, and like you said, their defense is really, really bad in some spots. Like, they should be a little better in some spots, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like they signed Walker and Billings in free agency, drafted multiple defensive linemen up front.
They're linebackers. I don't think they're that good. People are making this big thing about the linebackers they're bringing in. I don't think that they had one good season. I don't think they're that good. I'm worried about the offensive line.
Do you think this line is accurate?
I don't want anything to do with it.
Me neither. I want to watch these two teams. I just have no idea.
I think because you got to look at it like this. Can the Bears stop Jones and Dillon? And then if they start running, that's going to open stuff for Jordan Love. But if the Bears stop that run game, it's going to be really hard for Love to do anything. Flip side, when was the Bears defense is just garbage? When was the Bears offensive line can't block? This game can play out 15 different ways.
Yeah, I just want nothing to do with this one. I'm not touching it with the 10-foot pole. This next game, I will be staying away from also because the health of Cooper Kupp is now out, and I'm really concerned about the Rams being able to move the ball here against Seattle. I don't think Seattle should be laying just like a massive number early on in the year, but I kind of like Seattle overall this year. I think they're improved. I like their roster. I'm not touching this one because I think the Rams could really, really struggle to move the ball without Kupp, and I'm sticking away from this one with my poor Rammies. Eric, what about you?
I was looking at the Rams. I really wanted to talk myself in to take the Rams just because McVay has shown he does cover against Carroll. I think
5 out of the last 6.
Yep. You can't.
Last year Seattle won both, but the Rams covered both.
Yep. You can run the ball on the Seattle defense. Seattle's really good at creating pressure. You can run on them though with the McVay zone running system. I think they'll be able to move the ball. I think the Rams defense is going to be better than people realize. I think it was addition by subtraction losing Jalen Ramsey. And the other thing is the interior of the Seahawks offensive line is really weak. Those 2 bookend tackles were great last year. I think they're going to take another step in their development. Center, right and left guard really weak. Line Donald up from one of theirs. He could get in, create a little havoc. But Kupp is just, you look, Kelsey's third down efficiency numbers are phenomenal. And Kupp's blow his out of the water.
Yeah.
So I just don't know, because the one thing about Stafford, and I'm a huge Stafford guy for obviously him playing in Detroit, he has such a history of just locking into his one and just getting the ball. Now with Kupp not there, who's he going to look to? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. You have five, and the flip side, do you trust, another one of the terms I use is margin. Do you trust Geno to win with margin?
I mean, I trust Geno's, but not with margin.
But
No. He's, again, it feels like at over 3.5, you're starting to get in that weird. It's just, I need to see more from the Rams. Like, I would not be laying the number with Seattle. It's just, what number would it be playable for me with the Rams without Kupp? Probably 7.
And I mean, I think if you're going to play this game, I think the play is the under.
Absolutely.
I think the play in this game, if you're going to have to play a game, is the under.
Seattle just gets up, tries to run the ball. Rams are trying to run the ball anyways because they don't have a lot of options out there. They want to try to steal a game or two, and then maybe Kupp can come back, and then all of a sudden you're a healthier team in the bad NFC, and you feel like you can stay close to 500 for a while. But I can't do it quite yet with the Rammies in week 1. We get to the Raiders and the Broncos, another divisional game here. This one's flipped up to 4 as the Broncos bring in head coach Sean Payton. The Raiders bring in quarterback Jimmy G and maybe head coach Josh McDaniels up on the hot seat. Broncos as a 4-point favorite in here. You're kind of high on the Broncos.
I'm high on the Broncos
throughout the year, right?
I'm going to be honest. This is a game I want absolutely nothing to do with.
Nothing at this line. To me, I don't know what to expect from Jimmy G here with the Raiders. Jacobs is back, but he is held out for a while. What kind of shape is he going to be in? Keep in mind, he's coming off a year where he had 1,650 rushing yards and over 2,000 from scrimmage. He could be worn down this year. And then the Broncos, year 2 of Wilson. What's it going to be like? Does Peyton even want him around, or is he trying to get rid of him so he can find his own guy? His teams were always good offensively, so you feel like at least they should be better offensively. The problem with Denver is they have some really good top-tier talent. If everybody was healthy on Denver, I think they would have one of probably the better starting rosters from top to bottom. But as soon as they get a little bit of injury or bad luck, they're in trouble. Because they traded so many picks for Russ. They've traded 6 picks over the last 2 years for a quarterback and a head coach.
Yeah.
And the quarterback has been bad. And the quarterback was bad last year. So think about that. 6 picks for a guy that doesn't even play on the field for you, and another one who's only been a major negative for you.
It's mind-blowing.
But all that being said, Peyton should improve this team so much just based on what they were dealing with. This could be an Urban Meyer-like upgrade that we saw with the Jags.
You have a healthy Javonte Williams. You bring in P. Ryan, who's a very capable backup. So you have a good 2-headed running monster there. You have Marvin Mims, who is electric at Oklahoma. Put him with Judy, even though Judy's a little banged up, and Cortland Sutton, just an absolute dynamic receiving core. You got Frank Clark coming over, which is great. But on the flip side, with the Raiders, the one thing that's just valuable in this league is just pass rushing. And you look at what the Raiders have. What do they have? They have Crosby. They drafted the kid Wilson. They have Chandler Jones, even though he sent out some weird tweet or something. So you have 3 good pass rushers that could get to the quarterback. Maybe Wilson struggles a little bit in his first game in the NFL. That'd be my only hiccup why the Raiders could cover. But I don't know. You got Jimmy Garoppolo, who doesn't throw the ball deep. That's going to mess up Devontae Adams' ADOT. I don't know. The Raiders could just boom. But you got Josh Jacobs, who's going to be playing for a contract. I don't know. I got to see what the Raiders are before I do it.
I got to get a read on both of these teams, I feel like, this year as we get to another game that I think will be a good game. I'm probably going to be staying away from this one, too, just from playing aside of this game. Might be a game where you can throw some DFS players in the mix, though. Dolphins Chargers over under in this game is 50.5. Dolphins were tied for the most completions of 50 yards or more last year in the NFL. So your guy Tua, he's been practicing some jujitsu during the offseason. He's been learning how to fall so he doesn't get concussions. So he's learning. I thought that was funny in reading that and hearing that. So he learned how to fall. Like now he can be a wrestler, I guess, right? He can take bumps in there. Tua, shout out.
Like, I hate it. You and I are in that fantasy.
I know.
But I mean, it's just math. I mean, if Waddle and Tyreek are both top 20 fantasy football players, math-wise, Tua has to have a good season if he stays.
Defense should be much better with one of the better defensive coordinators, right? With Fangio coming in. Yeah, Ramsey's out for a while, but Fangio should help them. They won't be as bad defensively.
So I mentioned my boy Reed was on my stream last night. Played at a high level in college. His thing was this, that he feels that the coaching upgrade that no one is talking about is going from Lombardi to Moore. That you have Justin Herbert, who is an absolute freak of nature with his arm strength, and you had this OC that was insistent
and dunking. Yeah.
Now you have Moore, who's going to just say, dude, go at it, kid, throw the ball. And he thinks you're going to be seeing this whole thing where you just are going to be blown away. And the DB his thing is the Fangio system needs
it's going to overwhelm them.
Corners. But he doesn't think, when you look at the quarters, now this is what he said last night, he doesn't think the DBs are fast enough and athletic enough to keep up with Mike Williams and Quentin Johnson on the outside. And then he said the defense, the main thing has been stopping the run that the Chargers struggle with. Dolphins really don't run the ball that much.
Yeah.
Dolphins are going to be looking to pass the ball, and that's one thing that the Chargers are pretty good at defending. He made a pretty good case, and it goes back.
So do you like them? Would you play them at this number here, 3?
No. I have so many bets. I didn't.
So they wouldn't.
But if I were to bet, I'd bet the Chargers minus the 3.
Yeah, I'm in a competition where you have to pick every game each week on the spread. It's like a Yahoo Sports one. And so like if you're doing that, I would lean Chargers as well at the 3. Because I still think they're the better team there, and I worry a little bit in this spot because the Chargers are healthy now. The beginning of the year, new scheme. Could they, like you said, could they have some hidden upside that we don't even realize on the offensive side? I'd lean Chargers, but both of us staying away from this one. 3 games to discuss, Eric. We've got Sunday, Eagles at the Pats, and we've got Tom Brady Appreciation Day on Sunday. Pats are up to +4 here on DRF Sportsbook, and they bring in a new offensive coordinator. Your boy Matt Patricia was the offensive coordinator last year, and he was so bad. They should be better just because of the subtraction of him. And Mac Jones worked with Bill O'Brien previously, and so that's why they kind of went out and hired O'Brien and said, hey, look, Mac, this is your guy. Like, no excuses for you right now. I don't know if they win the game. I'm absolutely playing the Patriots in here as a home dog at anything over 3. At anything over +3, +4 here is a great number for me. The Eagles are good, going to be very good. Patriots have struggled with running quarterbacks, but they've had the whole offseason to prepare for this opponent. And they actually drafted a kid now that plays some quarterback for them, that actually plays some wide receiver. And he could even be someone you put on the scout team and you can kind of mimic a little bit what you get from the running quarterbacks. I just think they'll keep it close and close enough to where it could be within the field goal. So while I don't love the Patriots overall as necessarily a team, one of the weaknesses that Philly had last year was stopping the run. That's what New England's going to try to do. Run, less possessions, keep this game close for as long as possible. And I'm going to lean New England here at home. Eric, what about you? Eagles, Patriots?
I'm going to wait. I really feel that the tackle, you mentioned offensive line injuries at the beginning of our show. They
for the
haven't
Patriots, right?
Patriots.
Anderson.
Yeah. This has been dipping down. It dipped down to 3.5 with the news of him 4. I'm gonna wait. I'm definitely gonna bet it. I think we can get a 4.5. Don't get a 4.5. I'm more than happy taking the 4.
And keep in mind when Eric's talking about, we'll wait, we'll let you know again on Sunday morning what lines are. So you can join us again. Make sure to set your alarm Sunday morning, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. You can, it'll be right on Eric's social media. It'll be on my social media, Twitter, Facebook. We'll stream it on YouTube also. And that way, if things have changed a little between now and then, if we know for sure guys that are playing, we'll be able to give you all that information then.
Yeah. And I think that, I think we're going to be able to just wait it out, get a better number. And you hit the nail on the head. They're going to run the ball. I mentioned the stat before about quarterbacks that didn't play in the preseason. Hurts didn't play in the preseason. Eagles don't really have the depth in the offensive line. I'm a little worried about that. I'm a little worried about the new pieces on the defense. I think that Belichick is going to have his guys ready. I think the Patriots defense is elite. I think it's a top 5 defense. I think they're going to be able to disrupt Hurts, make him uncomfortable. I think they have the secondary that's going to be able to contain A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I think the bet here is the Patriots. I think you just have to wait. Because the first 2 weeks of the NFL are always like, you don't have the analytical stuff.
No, yeah.
Like in a couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about ADA and DVOA, all that stuff.
Yep, and grading
right now,
and
going on more perceived, what we perceive is going to happen.
The next few weeks,
we buy the dip of the other teams that underperform this week.
Yep.
So it's just one of those things. But I think the Patriots are going to be able to move the ball on the ground. I'll take the Patriots plus the 4.
So that, as of right now, we'll say that would be our 5th play. Patriots plus the 4. We'll see if we like any of the other last 2 games any better than that. We'll talk Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football. First up, Sunday night, Cowboys at the Giants, 2 teams that were in the playoffs last year. The Cowboys finished 3rd in sacks. They also led the league in takeaways last year. They're trying to become the first team since 1974 to lead the league in takeaways for 3 straight years. Question marks on the offensive line. Smith has only played 17 of the last 50 regular season games. Steele's coming off a knee injury. But as far as starting the year, they're ready to rock. McCarthy calling plays. Can Dak limit the turnovers? Moore is gone now as the offensive coordinator. The Giants, they put pressure on the quarterback on 30% of dropbacks last year, which was 8th in the league. They have some concerns on the offensive line themselves. Neal is not very good. He's going to need to show some improvement. I love the addition of Waller. Waller's played in only 20 games the last 2 years, but prior to that, 2019 and 2020, he played in every game, and he had over 2,300 yards and 12 touchdowns. Can he help them, give them just a much better pass catcher than they had last year if he can stay healthy? Daniel Jones got paid because he didn't turn the ball over last year. He's only been 1-5 against down 3 against the spread. So the Cowboys on the road, 3-point favorite here. You going with the home 3-point dog?
I got him at 3.5. My thought process is this.
Was that your buy-in point? Like, what about this number right here?
Anything over 3.
I agree.
At 3, I'd wait. How the number is with the -117, it kind of suggests we're going to see a little bit of a movement going in the Giants' favor. I mentioned the divisional dog angle. Something else we need to remember. We both agreed DeBull is a great coach. He was an insane 10-2 last year as a dog. Danny Dimes is 63% ATS. You mentioned McCarthy calling the plays. The one thing that I've been adamant about is when you step away from football, the game changes so much. You just aren't able to keep up with it. Even if you're like a color commentator, like Bill Collar, I think the game passes you by. And I really think the game has passed McCarthy by with his ability to call plays. I think it's going to be a very, I don't want to use the term stagnant, like play calling. I think we're going to not see much variety. I think it's going to be a lot of fly stuff. We're not going to see much running the ball,
creativity, yeah.
and the offensive line coach. They brought in a new offensive line coach, and Dak really struggled with pressure in his face. And I think we're going to see the same, because you look at this offensive line coach, historically speaking, his lines have struggled pass blocking. So if the Giants are able to get in and make him uncomfortable, I think it's going to be a bad game for Dak. I think he's going to throw to some turnovers. And then you have Trey Lance there. He could press just because they made that move for Lance. So mentally wise, I don't know the state of Trey Lance. I think you have the better coach in the ball. I think you're going to see Daniel Dimes, who's a mobile quarterback, who's going to be able to negate the pass rush of the Cowboys, and you gave Jones weapons. I absolutely love it. I love him here at 3.
The Giants would be my lean here also. I definitely wouldn't want to lay the number with Dallas on the road. Let's finish up with Monday Night Football. The Bills are a 2.5-point favorite now on the road, taking on Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. One thing we pointed out last year talking about the Bills, they were dealing with that crazy situation where Damar Hamlin's pronounced dead on the field. You think you're not sure what is going on with his health. And then all of a sudden there's this whirlwind where he's okay. He's back at the stadium for your playoff game. This just emotional wave for them. I don't know how to gauge that. And that was a great point you made, because we don't have a whole lot of precedent for something like that. And everybody takes emotions differently. Like, everybody takes major life events differently. Some people, they lose a family member and they're out there and you wouldn't really know it. Other people, it will really impact them. So I think it was tough to get a gauge for them at the end of last year, because this is a team that since 2019, they have the best points margin per game, which is plus 8.4, which means they win by a lot. And when they lose, it's generally very close. So it was weird to see them get blown out like that in the playoffs. Offensive line could struggle with some depth. We've said that about so many teams this year. Last year, Allen, again, turnovers. That was the same problem with Dak, who we were just talking about previously. Then on the flip side, the Jets have a fantastic defense. They should be really strong there on the front side, and the secondary should be fantastic. But then on the offensive line, their left tackle Brown had no training camp after recovering from rotator cuff surgery. He's 38 now. The right tackle is playing on a twice repaired knee, hasn't played a full game since 2020. Rodgers needs some time to throw. When the defense doesn't get a pass rush, he has the second highest total QBR. He's one of the all-time best with time back there. He'll just pick you apart. With one pass rush win last year, just one pass rush win, he's 28th in QBR. So as he's gotten older, he's not been fantastic at dealing with the pressure. I don't really know what to do in this game specifically, Eric. I don't know if I have a strong play one way or the other. I'm probably going to kick back and watch. Because I'm not quite as high on either of these teams this year as everybody else is. I think the Bills will probably still win the division. I don't know if they'll be that top-tier Super Bowl contender. Again, I have some worries about the O-line. I have some worries about their defense in some spots too. Talk to us about Monday Night Football.
First half under, if you're going to bet it. I think that's the bet right there. I didn't bet it, but if you're looking for a bet, I think that's what you do. I think both these defenses are going to be elite. But my worry point for the Bills is no Von Miller. If Von Miller is not there, we saw how much the Bills defense struggled last year. But they did bring in a new defensive coordinator who's going to look to blitz more, look to create more pressure, and they did add more pass rushers. That's a little bit of a worry point. I'm a little worried about the Jets and being able to stop the run. That was a weak point. They really didn't do anything to address that. They brought in Aaron Rodgers. Everyone's like, oh my God, they have Aaron Rodgers. They brought in Dalvin Cook. The people I talk about football, no one told me Dalvin Cook was the missing piece. I think this Jets team has a little holes. I think they're a little bit overhyped. I'm going to pull it up right now. Rodgers, historically speaking, the last couple years in week one really has not been that solid. They lost last year. I remember that. I'm pulling it up right now.
Well, no, was it 2 years ago when they were huge favorites and lost?
Yep. So I'm looking at it right now. Oh, so in game 1, it says he's 9-6 ATS. Let me look at the seasons. 2023 lost, 2021 lost, 18-19 lost, 14-15 lost. Yeah. So he hasn't been that good. Recently, he hasn't been that good.
Last year, lose at Minnesota to start in week 1, 23-7. It was a couple years ago when they got crushed by the Saints in week 1, 38-3. And that was when everybody freaked out. And then they came back and they were really, really good throughout a lot of the rest of the season. But yeah, this is another one of those watch games for me. I could see this game in so many different ways. And if the Jets win, everyone's going to say they're the team to beat in the Super Bowl. And if either one of these teams look really impressive, I'm going to fade them in week 2 for sure. For sure.
Oh, 100%.
We'll have a lot more to talk with you about on Friday on the Winning Ticket, 6:00 p.m. Eastern time, and on Sunday, where Erik and I will go over all of the games on Sunday and on Monday, and we'll be doing that at 11:00 a.m. Eastern time. We'll go for about 45 minutes to an hour. We'll give you everything that we're playing. We'll talk some DFS, and then you'll have an hour after we're done to get yourself all ready, lock in any last-minute bets, finish up any fantasy lineups that you have. Erik, anything else you want to mention before we finish up?
Nope. Looking forward to another good season with you, my friend.
Thank you so much, buddy. We'll be back here every week on Wednesday nights when we record, then on Fridays for the Winning Ticket, Sunday mornings for all the last-minute up-to-date info in the NFL. Thanks so much for hanging